Welcome back, Cosmic Divers, to another mind-expanding deep dive. Last time, we started exploring Project Centaur, focusing on that mysterious meteorite packed with data from a lost civilization.
Right, the data that basically kicked off this whole incredible and frankly terrifying chain of events involving Karina.
Exactly. And today, using Karina's own journal entries, we're going deeper. Our mission is to really unpack the transformation of Karina's mind. It's pretty staggering.
It really is. Her brain wasn't just slightly altered, it was fundamentally rebuilt to hold a chip designed to store essentially galactic-level knowledge.
And this wasn't like some quick outpatient procedure, was it? This was a massive undertaking
Yeah.
filled with huge challenges for the mothership scientists.
Oh, absolutely. Pushing boundaries doesn't even begin to cover it,
Yeah.
ethically, technologically. It was completely uncharted territory.
So the universe is speaking through Karina, but today we're asking, what did it actually take to rebuild her brain, to make her its voice? Let's unpack the sheer difficulty of it.
Okay, first off, the scale of this thing. It's hard to even wrap your head around.
Right, we're not talking about just adding memory. This was described as a total overhaul. And remember, this is happening after her DNA had already gone through that irreversible change. Her body was still, unpredictable.
Totally unpredictable.
Yeah.
And then they decide, okay, let's implant this chip holding, what was it, over 10 billion gigabytes of data.
10 billion. It's an almost meaningless number. It's so vast. Think about every piece of human knowledge, art, science, and then multiply it.
And to even physically house that chip, let alone interface with it, her entire brain structure needed changing, not tweaking, rebuilding.
That's the core challenge we're looking at today. But it gets even more intense when you realize the people running the project were seriously worried.
Yeah, this is where it gets really interesting. The urgency, like you said, it pushed them into places maybe they wouldn't have gone otherwise. Carmen, Druechyn, see, these are the top minds, right?
The absolute key figures.
And they had grave concerns. They went straight to Lucas, the project lead, and told him, basically, Karina might not survive this.
Wow. So the experts themselves are sounding the alarm.
Loudly. And Lucas, apparently, when he saw all three of them together looking so worried, he felt it too. He actually agreed with their doubts, especially since her big genetic shift had happened so recently.
So everyone knew the risks. Extremely high risk.
Immense risks. But the decision was made. The journal calls it a point of no return. There was just no more time to waste. It feels less like caution and more like sheer momentum.
Like a train that couldn't be stopped, even with the potential cost. Was there really no alternative? Or was Lucas just that determined?
That's the lingering question, isn't it? A
Yeah.
desperate gamble, maybe. Which leads us to the next part of their strategy,
Right.
which is, well, it's ingenious, but also deeply unsettling.
You mean the clone?
Exactly. The deployment of Karina's clone back on Earth. An exact replica, the journal says. And it was intricately connected, wirelessly, neurologically, somehow, to the real Karina up on the mothership.
And its purpose. Just lay it out there.
Its purpose was chillingly simple, to absorb much of the physical stress during the procedure. While the real Karina underwent the brain rebuild, the clone felt the pain, the nausea, the biological strain.
That's echologically complex doesn't quite cut it. It's using a sentient being, even a clone, as a biological shock absorber.
It really pushes the boundaries. And then there's that weird detail Lucas gave the clone, remember?
Oh yeah, the apples and candies. He told her to eat as many as possible. And she didn't know why, but she felt this intense craving for sugar.
Right. It's bizarre. The clone, unaware of anything, just munching on sweets while unknowingly enduring the physical fallout of cosmic brain surgery happening light years away.
It makes you question everything about identity. If one part feels the agony, another part loses memories, what's left of the original person?
A profound question. Does pursuing this ultimate evolution as they saw it justify that kind of sacrifice? Especially when it's involuntary, the source really makes you think about where that line is.
So while the clone is dealing with this increasing physical distress, the headaches, the nausea, needing sedation, what's actually happening to Karina's brain on the mothership?
That's the first major stage, the actual brain restructuring. This was meticulous, painstaking work. High tech doesn't begin to describe it. They worked, and I quote, cell by cell, channel by channel, synapse by synapse.
So literally taking it apart and putting it back together differently.
Pretty much. The journal uses this analogy. Scientists floated and mapped each brain particle as though assembling a three-dimensional cosmic puzzle, rewiring her entire consciousness.
That sounds incredibly complex and slow.
Excruciatingly slow, according to the journal. It took hundreds of hours. Hundreds.
And during this process, this is the really crucial and maybe disturbing part. They had to erase things, didn't they?
Yes, that was the painful necessity, as it's termed. To make room for this new, expanded architecture capable of handling the incoming data, they had no choice but to erase fragments of her earthbound memories.
Erasing memories. Fragments of herself.
Right.
To make space.
Oh.
It's not just deleting files, it's rewriting her personal history.
Exactly. It's sacrificing parts of her individual past, her Earth identity, for this grander cosmic purpose. Wiping the slate clean, in a way.
And while this is happening, the clone on Earth is suffering more and more.
Yes, the symptoms worsened significantly during the restructuring. Headaches, nausea, the pull towards sleep. She was kept sedated in deep sleep for as long as possible in isolation.
And there was even a physical change. Beyond just the symptoms.
Right. Her whole physiology started shifting. Even her rib cage apparently transformed, supposedly, to better channel cosmic energy once the chip was in place. It's just layer upon layer of transformation and sacrifice.
It sounds incredibly invasive, almost violent in a way, recreation through deconstruction.
Yeah.
So after hundreds of hours of that, you'd hope the worst was over.
You would think. But then came phase 2, the actual chip implantation. And they were smart about this, or maybe just cautious given everything else.
Oh, so.
They inserted the chip without the data loaded onto it first.
Like installing hardware before you install the software.
Exactly. They were worried about a fatal system crash if they tried to do both at once. Her newly restructured brain had to fully adapt to the physical presence of the chip before they even thought about uploading the 10 billion gigabytes.
Which makes sense. Still, another hurdle. How did this phase play out for Karina and the clone?
Well, here the timeline difference is really stark. On the mothership, the insertion itself was apparently instantaneous. Quick, precise.
But on Earth.
For the clone, it was days of torment. Even worse than before in some ways. The sugar cravings went through the roof. Dark chocolate became her fuel, the journal notes.
Why the chocolate?
Because the chip, even empty, was drawing heavily on her biological energy to stabilize itself. It needed fuel, and the headaches came back even sharper.
Just relentless. But Karina herself, the real Karina, her body adapted.
Remarkably well, it seems. Her system, already changed by the initial transformation, was described as remarkably regenerative. She adjusted far faster than expected to the chip's presence.
So the implantation, despite the clone's suffering, was ultimately a success.
Yes. Once they were sure her brain had adapted, the clone's symptoms finally subsided, and Karina was cleared to return to Earth.
And then comes the conversation with Lucas, back in Brazil, which sounds almost understated, given what she'd been through.
It's quite chillingly casual, actually. Lucas just tells her, pretty much straight up, that's when we implanted the chip. And oh, by the way, we also modified your entire brain to prepare it.
Just like that. How did she react?
Shock, obviously. A literal, what? And she touched the back of her head, the base of her skull near the spine, saying, it feels strange back here, like a wave of heat or some kind of energy pulsing through.
And Lucas confirms it.
Yep, that's where it is. He also mentions the chip, even though it's empty for now, has infinite storage.
Infinite storage. She must have been reeling. Did she grasp the danger?
She asked if she was like a time bomb shell, and Lucas's reply. It's stark. He says, worse. For the new you to exist, part of the old you had to die.
Wow. He just laid it out there. Part of you had to die.
But then he immediately tries to soften it, kind of. But don't worry, you didn't die during the brain rebuilding or the chip implant. Though he adds, almost as an afterthought, rejection is still possible, but I don't think it'll happen.
Rejection is still possible. After all that, the casualness is unnerving. How much did she even know beforehand? Did she consent to this level of change, this risk, this memory erasure?
The journal doesn't explicitly state her level of prior consent to the specifics, which adds another layer of ethical ambiguity. It seems Lucas was driving things forward based on perceived necessity.
And he finishes by telling her how unique she is.
Yeah, he calls her one of a kind, the rarest being in the universe, more valuable than any jewel. He even mentions that the others, Seed, Druechyn, Carmen, all told me you wouldn't survive. He basically says, you're tougher than anyone knew.
So her survival wasn't just success, it was beating the odds, defying the experts' own predictions. She truly is unique.
Absolutely. It marks her out as something fundamentally different, something maybe even Lucas didn't fully anticipate.
Okay, so let's recap. We've walked through this incredible and frankly quite harrowing process. The meticulous, dangerous brain restructuring, erasing parts of her past.
Hundreds of hours of that.
Right. Then the chip implant, the immense physical toll transferred to the clone. It highlights the sheer difficulty and the extreme measures taken by these scientists.
The risks were astronomical, the methods ethically fraught, and the cost, particularly to the clone and to Karina's own memory, was immense.
So what does this profound transformation, this rebuilding of a mind, ultimately mean for Karina and maybe for us observing Project Centaur?
Well, it means Karina is fundamentally changed. The journal positions her as a hybrid. She's not just human anymore. She's part human, part alien from the initial changes, and now part living technology.
Living technology.
Wow.
So her body isn't just carrying the chip, it's integrated with it, like an organic computer.
That seems to be the implication, blurring the lines between biology and tech. This whole procedure wasn't just about survival or data storage. It was about forging this rarest being, capable of interfacing with cosmic knowledge on an unprecedented level.
A foundational step built on immense sacrifice.
Exactly. And it leaves us, and you, the listener, with a really provocative thought, doesn't it? Considering the costs, the erased memories, the clone suffering, the risk of death or rejection, all to make way for this grander purpose. How much of ourselves, our history, our identity would we be willing to give up for ultimate knowledge, for evolution on that scale?
At what point does becoming something more mean losing what makes us
Well,
us? A challenging question to ponder as we continue our dive into Project Centaur.